hardest things a Catholic school principal or president will do is to manage the financial operations of the school. The challenge is to make sure that the expenditures that you have allocated are consistent with your organization's mission and your vision for the school. What we're going to look at now are examples of some of the things that you need to consider in terms of expenses for both a Catholic elementary and a Catholic secondary school. On this screen, you'll see the listing of expenses for a typical elementary or middle school. Now, the first category deals with wages and salaries. And under that, as you see, administrative salaries, staff salaries, teacher salaries, development, fundraising salaries, other instructional salaries. That would be if you have an aide or paraprofessional, extracurricular salaries, coaching stipends, and substitute teachers. Now, in this particular case, the school has decided not to allocate funds for substitute teachers. That's kind of a risky option in this day and age. And then under fringe benefits, you'll see FICA, medical, dental, vision, and life insurance. That's simply the employer's portion, not the individual's portion of that bill. Retirement. Now, in this particular school, you'll see that the employer is contributing 4%. Then you also see unemployment insurance and workers' comp insurance. So for a total, in this particular school, for the fringe benefits, $236,702. Now, in this category, which is other administrative expenses, you'll see a variety of expenses, such as contributed services. Now, that would be if you have a member of a religious congregation in your school that is serving in a capacity, for instance, answering phones or doing some work for the school. Maybe they're working with your alumni. That contributed service would go there. Then you'll see advertising and publicity. How do you recruit students? Information technology, hardware, laptop leases would go in this category. Computer maintenance and support. Administration, staff development expenses. That means if your principal, assistant principal are going to workshops. Then you have dues and subscriptions, conference and travel, minor equipment and furnishings, equipment repairs and maintenance, depreciation. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the semester. But you also have to look at things like printing and postage, stationery, supplies, professional services, who does your accounting, who completes your audit each year, telephone, internet services, license fees, inspections, liability insurance, interest payments if you're paying off a loan for a construction project that you did, bank fees. Every school has to deal with bank fees. And then miscellaneous administrative expenses such as processing fees. So you look at all of those, and the total administrative and salary expenditures are $1,752,802. And that seems like a lot of money, but it's actually not. Now, the next category are instructional expenses. Now, in this, again, you'll see that contributed service we talked about a few moments ago. But then you'll have instructional staff development expenditures, faculty travel, conference conventions, minor equipment and furnishings, faculty and continuing education support. Perhaps you're paying for graduate school or additional coursework for your teachers. Instructional supplies, instructional materials, instructional technology, student iPad leases, testing, graduate support programs. Again, if you're encouraging your teachers to go to graduate school and you're helping pay for that. Miscellaneous instructional expenses. So here, $70,000 is what they're spending on instructional expenses. Now, you also have library and media expenditures. So you have books and periodicals, audiovisual materials, audiovisual equipment, and miscellaneous library media expenditures. Now, in this particular school, they're not spending a whole lot on their library services. So again, total instructional expenditures at the school were $73,000. Now, you have the janitorial, operating, and maintenance expenses. First category would be salaries for your maintenance and janitorial. Then you have the maintenance and janitorial salaries for those that would be done on a seasonal basis, and that's what this school has laid out. And then you have other operating and maintenance expenses. You have, if you contract out for your janitorial services, if you have an elevator, you have to make sure that those are maintained, your fire suppression systems, your alarm systems, utilities, the water, gas, electric, and trash. You have to pay for all of those things. Plant and maintenance supplies. That's everything from paper towels to toilet paper to basic cleaning supplies. General repair and maintenance, minor plant equipment, technology infrastructure. That would be where you need to make sure that you have to lay more fiber cable out in your school or there's some issue with that. Depreciation on capital expenses, we'll talk about that later. Vehicle maintenance, if you have a school bus or van, you have to make sure that that is maintained. Rental of facilities, in this particular school, they are renting space, so they have to pay $200,000 a year to offset that. Equipment leases they don't have. Miscellaneous plant operating expenses were $5,000. So you look at that, and the total for maintenance and operating expenses was $265,000. Now the next category is total activities non-athletic, and you'll see publications, productions, religious activities, graduation, other students' activities, and field trips. If you have athletics, again, athletic expenditures on equipment, you might be a part of a league, you might have to pay to get into certain tournaments. All of that is included there. Some schools have bookstores. This particular school does not, but that would be included there. Food services. This school, they have a student breakfast, lunch, and snack program. They do not have vending machines, and they do not have transportation. But if you run a bus service, again, those are things that you have to include. If you go down to the fundraising and development materials and publications, in this particular case, they allocated $20,000. Outreach events and fees, special fundraising. They have an annual gala at the school. Miscellaneous development expenses and systems, that's basically for the technology. And expenses from an endowment if you have an endowment fund. And we'll talk about that later in the course as well. Now, you also have, in this particular case, if you have a debt service, you'd include that there. Now, you also, in some cases, if you have a capital campaign and you have pledges receivable, you write off a certain amount thinking that people aren't going to pay those. You always hope they will, but sometimes they don't. If you have money, and some schools do, the voluntary separation program is severance. On this school, they're not allocating anything for that. And then depreciation. So you get to this total of $2,292,802. That's basically what they are looking at. They need to cover that. Now, in this particular case, when you take their expenditures and what they're expecting is that they will wind up with a profit of $72,198. Now, what we should be trying to do is make sure that this number here is zero, because we want to make sure that it is as close as possible. But sometimes there will be overages. Hopefully there will never be a negative and a loss in that. Now that we've looked at a Catholic elementary school's expense listing, Let's take a look at those items that would be in a school's budget under the category of expenses. On the screen, you'll see expenses for a private or Catholic high school. Now, there's a lot of different categories that we'll explore in the next few minutes. The very first category that's here is financial aid and scholarships. Now, in this particular school, they're giving $1.2 million out in financial assistance. They're also allocating $357,500 for scholarships. And then they also have a tuition discount for faculty or staff children. That accounts for $132,600. Now, some people say, well, do we really have to count that? Yes. If you're giving out financial aid, you're giving out scholarship money, you're giving tuition discounts to your teacher, they must be included in your financials. Now, under instructional expenses, this particular school has professional development instruction of $41,600. Stipends instructional. Now, that would be for a department chairperson. That would be for perhaps a lead teacher. That might also account for work that is done, curriculum work that's done by teachers during the summer. Again, it all is part of the instructional stipend category. Instructional materials, $182,000. Software maintenance, instructional, $27,527. Advertising instructional, publication subscriptions, computer technology expenses. And again, you'll see under instructional expenses, this particular school is spending $335,072 on instructional expenses. Now, we go to the next category, which is athletic expenses. So you'll have athletic stipends. That's basically for the coaches. Uniform purchases, officials for games, student transportation, fees to league, or if you are going to different tournaments, that's where you would put that particular amount. Professional development for your coaches, supplies for athletics, advertising, professional association dues for the athletic department, office expenses. So this particular school is spending $574,887. Now, what some people often say is, well, when you look at this number and compare it with the 335, where is the emphasis being placed? The reality is, if you have an athletic program, it is expensive to operate. Advancement expenses. Now, in this particular case, the school is spending $45,427,000 for printing for the advancement office. Office expenses, $20,800. Alumni event expenses, $23,795. Fundraising event expenses, $208,000. And again, they don't have a capital campaign, so therefore there are no expenses. The admissions office, what about supplies? That's included there. Printing. And then again, advertising. That could be on the radio, that could be TV ads, could be on social media. And then we get to the salaries and benefits. And you'll see this school breaks it down into all of these different categories: administrative staff, admissions, advancement, athletics, dining services. Now, you'll see this line is zero. That's because this particular school is outsourcing that, so they are not paying anyone to do it because they have a contract with an outside company. Finance office, guidance staff, information technology, instructional staff. You'll see $5,100,112. That's basically for teachers. Maintenance department, school store, campus ministry, administration. Again, administrative staff is here. This is the cost of your administration. Now, we also have payroll tax expenses, and you'll see that number is $671,149. Healthcare premiums, that's what the school has to pay. Again, $1,151,778. You can see that's an awful lot of money, but that's critical in order to make sure that you have staff that will stay and you're getting the staff that you want. Pension, life insurance, again, $769,127. Unemployment workers' compensation premium is $72,259. So again, for salaries and benefits, we're talking $10,591,891. Maintenance and expenses. Now, this school has lease agreements, so they have lease payments on certain equipment, repairs and maintenance, custodial supplies, maintenance, custodial contracted services. So that means if you're paying a company to come in and clean the building every day, external grounds maintenance, again, paying some outside company to do that, which is what this school is doing, to the tune of $87,838. And then utilities at $364,000. So maintenance and utilities, the school is spending $769,122. Then you'll have general administrative expenses. A lot of things get put into this particular category, like school improvement program instructional. That might, again, be work that's being done. You're having someone come in from the outside to work with your teachers. Textbook expenses, student transportation, graduation expenses, awards, professional development for administration, fees paid to the Archdiocese, fees for accounting and auditing, supplies for administration, printing, software maintenance fees, that's administrative software, advertising administration, office expenses. And again, you'll see these two different categories. One is administration, the other is general office expenses. And in this case, there is a president, a principal, and they have funds that are designated specifically for their office. In this particular case, it was $5,892 for the president. The principal was $4,928. You have telephone expenses, postage, bad debt. And in this particular case, the school is doing so well that they're not anticipating any bad debt. Lease expenses for administration, auto and travel expenses, professional association dues, that would be for the whole school, publications and subscriptions, public relations, special events, property and casualty insurance, debt service, depreciation, capital expenditures, gift in kind from advancement, computer technology expenses for administration, and donor restricted expenses. So again, in this particular category, it's $2,684,187. Student services. Now, there's a number of categories here. Testing, school store purchases, uniform purchases. This school sells uniforms out of their school store. Food purchases, zero, again, because they have contracted that out with an outside source. Supplies. This school has a boosters club. They have student government and activities here. Dining services, again, zero. Guidance department supplies. Campus ministry supplies. Class treasury expenses. Again, that would be for events that they would have. Chapel expenses, retreat expenses, miscellaneous expenses for clubs and activities, you'll see are zero, and office expenses for guidance have already been included, so they're zero. Now, in this particular case, you'll see student service expense of $252 for a total of expenses being $17,714,795. That gives you a picture of all the things that you, as an administrator, need to make sure that you are monitoring on a daily basis. That will be done by your finance officer, but you have to make sure that you understand what goes into each one of those accounts. You have to make sure that you understand what's being expensed, because ultimately you are responsible for the finances of the school along with your financial officer. Now that we've looked at both the Catholic elementary school and the Catholic secondary schools expense line items, you, as the head of the institution, need to make sure that your expenses are consistent with your school's mission and your vision. I can't emphasize that enough. The other challenge for you is to make sure that your expenses do not exceed your income. You need to ensure that you have a balanced budget. Because at the end of the day, who's going to pay if you have a deficit? Who will pay the salaries for your teachers if you have not done a good job managing the school's finances? That's the challenge for you as the head of the institution.